What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, reached out directly with the team, directly and indirectly, to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We're broadcasting live on February 8th, 2025. Here in the Toronto area, we're going to be getting another blast of snow today. We haven't had a huge snowstorm, but it seems every two or three days we're getting a few inches of snow, a few inches of consistently. So I did everything I had to this morning. For those who know a little bit about me, and if you don't, Dr. Vibe usually in his time zone be about 10:30 to about 12:30. Anything has to get done on a Saturday outdoors. That's when my prime time is. That's when I go grocery shopping, etc., all that sort of stuff. That's my time to get out there. And then rest of the afternoon, I'm good. So we have Primetime Saturday with Aisha LaLa. But right now, we only have LaLa. We had Aisha earlier on, but she's having some technical difficulties, but I'm sure she's going to be able to make it. LaLa, what's going on?
I'm going to miss my partner. She needs to get that together because I love to banter off of her.
Yeah, like, come on now. We got to make things happen. How you been?
I've been okay. I'm still fighting the good fight with my sister's case. It's going to be a long battle, but we're going to continue to fight, and I'm just going to continue to talk about it. So I think me talking about it and being very public about it is also coming back to bite me in the butt. I think they're trying to punish me, and I just won't be quiet. So, I mean, it's all going to come out in the wash.
Good stuff. Look, who's joined us via her phone.
Hey.
There we go. Hello, phone lady. What's up?
Yeah, we're having a snowstorm, so Wi-Fi's a bit hinky right now.
Yeah, we're supposed to be getting that craziness happening too in the very near future. So what's been going on over the past week?
Scratching and surviving.
Okay, outside of that, like I got a great story, but it's ladies first, as always, as Queen Latifah would say.
Well, I've had a good book release.
Yeah, okay. So is today we're going to get a full talk about it or what?
Right. Yes.
Okay, let's talk. So should we come off screen and just let you dominate the landscape today? Okay, we're going to do that. So family.
No, I think we could all talk about it together, I think.
Okay. All right. Okay.
It is a children's book. It's a family thing. And yeah, I think that we should all talk about it. I am going to cut a promo this week.
So give us the background, the story behind it. Let's talk.
Yeah. So the book is called The Infallible Fannie Freeman. And I had a illustrator, Sherry Campbell, out of Canada, who did it. She actually did the illustrations for friend of the show, Christy White's book. Gizmo. And so she did mine. Christy actually introduced me. And so I started working with her about a year ago. And the book is basically about this 5-year-old girl who, for all intents and purposes, is on the spectrum. But she's 5. So you can't really tell if she's being 5 or if she's being on the spectrum. But she's a very quirky little girl. She's every bit of 5-year-old girl. She wears a little mini child's blanket as a cape. She has mixed match socks and her favorite doll, Ambrosia, who's her best friend. And I was very deliberate in terms of the things I wanted. This little girl, she knows she's like a child. She thinks she's right everything. She's right about everything. And she especially wants her older brother, big brother Marcus, to know that she's always right. Well, I got the concept for the story because when my daughter was 5 and my nephew was 6, we were living in South Carolina and we came up here to Connecticut to visit my family. And my daughter and my nephew got to arguing one morning. And my daughter said to my nephew, "I'm right. I'm always right. Even when I'm wrong, I'm right. And don't you forget it." And I never, and my nephew was like, "Amaya, you can't always be right." And she said, "I am." And so I was like, okay, first of all, she sounds like her father. There's that part, right? And then I was like, I always remember that. So eventually I like about a year and a half ago, I wrote it into a short children's story, but I wanted her to learn a lesson. And I also wanted to make sure that there were deliberate things in terms of how the drawings were that could speak to kids in a way and didn't have some of the things I think that we give to kids a little bit too young now so that they're not fully engaged. So you wouldn't know it, but you never see any, you wouldn't know it until I tell you, but you never see any technology in this book. Nobody has a cell phone. Nobody has a tablet. Nobody has a computer. They have a television. And part of the reason that they have this fight, the brother and sister, is because it was over the television, right? And sitting to watch the TV. And I wanted to kind of recapture what it was like for me growing up on in the morning, on a Saturday morning, going to watch cartoons and fighting for the TV with my sisters, my 2 younger sisters. And so I wanted to recapture that. And again, that was in the 80s, so it was pre-technology. So I wanted to make sure that I was like, well, I think this children's book series is going to take place in a time pre-technology. And so they have actual innocent childhood experiences, but learn lessons. And so I was very deliberate in terms of how I named her. So her name is Fanny Freeman. Her full name is actually Frances L. Freeman. L as in ELLE. My daughter's middle name is L.
Okay,
But Frances L was also Prince's father in Purple Rain.
I love it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. And they do have a father. The father's just not in this book because he's at work. He just happens to be at work.
Family.
Yeah, it is. But you know that there is a father there because I made sure to tell the artist I want a family picture hung in the living room. So you do see a family.
Huge.
Yeah, so you do see a family picture of the father, the mother, and the 2 kids. And then, so they do have a mother. I was also very deliberate. I told her I want them to have a puppy, and I want the puppy to be a black dog because black dogs are difficult to get adopted. People actually take their racism to dogs, right? And cats. And so I wanted to make sure of that. I wanted so she's a brown girl, but she has a dark skinned doll. And I wanted to make sure that we show like the spectrum in our families and of that too. So so her mother is a bit lighter than her and her brother, and her father's a darker man. And I did that like me and my sisters in our family. And so I wanted to have these little touches that were very deliberate, I chose things very specifically. I won't tell people why I named her Fanny because I want to sell the book, but I did name her Fanny, and Freeman is their last name. And I chose that because of the Freedmen's Bureau. And if you don't know, the Freedmen's Bureau after Reconstruction, well, a lot of Black people who are named Freeman got their name as a result of that, got their last name from that. Also, too, I knew the book was coming out in Black History Month, and thinking about Frederick Douglass and his book up from going from slavery. I forgot what the name of the book is, but his book about going from slavery to freedom, and having read that, so I wanted to kind of capture that. But also, a lot of the Freedmen's Bureaus started HBCUs, and I'm an HBCU grad, so I was very deliberate in a lot of the little minor details when it came to this book, which is why I'm so proud of it. But overall, it's a really cute story. it starts with her being right, because the first line of the book is Fanny Freeman was right. And then it ends and everything was right again. So I was very deliberate in terms of how I started it, how I ended it, everything that went in the middle, and what I wanted in the drawings. And when it came down to naming names and everything like that, like I wanted Fanny and Marcus to have the same number of letters in their first names as each other, because parents do kooky things like that when they name their kids, right? Like my mother and my grandmother both had this thing where they both named their two younger children with names that rhymed.
Mhm.
Like my aunt's names are Terry and Sherry, and my sister's names are Raja and Najla.
I love
And my
Okay.
mom's name is Gail. Okay, my mom's name is Gail. So right.
Gail.
So
Okay.
right, my mom's name is Gail. So it's like having a daughter named Aisha, and then you have Raja and Najla, and they match, and then having a daughter named Gail and having Terry and Sherry. So it's like, and my aunt named her kids Carson and Brennan, and they both, their names end in YN. So I wanted to be deliberate, like my family does those kinds of things. I wanted them to have traditions.
Okay.
So I was very, very, very deliberate in terms of how I crafted this story, crafted this family, wanted what I wanted in the illustrations. And I have to say, Sherry Campbell was very, because I had gotten sick last year. You guys remember I was having issues with seizures. And so she was very, very patient. And she did such a great job. And it's funny because I made the book for an audience of about 3 to 8. And people even younger now, I think like people are like, oh, I can't wait to buy this for my 1-year-old granddaughter, my 2-year-old, my 3. I'm thinking like, actually, it is kind of appropriate for even younger ages because of the way that I wrote it. But I also wanted to make sure that in the words that I used language in such a way that would keep kids engaged, but also, as a parent, I was very blessed, but I was also very deliberate in terms of making sure my daughter was an early reader and knew a lot of words early, but also too, that was part of me needing a break from being called mommy every 5 seconds. So I would have my daughter like just tell me words and spell them out for me. And I'd read, like, if you see a word in the highway, spell it out and I'll tell you what it means. And we did that. And then one day her preschool teacher called me and said, we had a problem in class today. We were doing H words and all the kids were like house, home, hey. So I asked Amaya what her H word was, and she said hydroplane. And she said, and then she spelled it for me. And then I asked her if she knew what it meant. And she said, when your car skids on the ice and goes around and around and around. Now,
Oh,
my daughter at this time was 2.5. She was
wow.
2.5. And I had to explain to her teacher that this happened because I wanted some peace and quiet in the car after work. And my daughter used to hum. She was a hummer. She'd get in the car and she would just hum under her breath. So it was just to the point where you want silence, but there's somebody humming, but it's low. And
Yeah,
so
my son would get up and do that. Yep.
and so to make her be quiet, I was like, you guys are doing H words today. So when you see an H word, point it out, spell it out, and I'll tell you what it means. And that was the only way I could get her quiet that day in the car. And so people are like, whatever you're doing with her, keep doing it. My daughter read a full chess book, 400-page chess book that her dad gave her on chess moves, when she was like 7. She wanted to figure out how to beat me at chess. So so those kinds of things, and like little words, I was very deliberate in the word choices that I used, because even though there's some bigger words there, like the word infallible, I want kids, particularly our kids, to get used to using these words, because vocabulary is one of those things that gives you an edge.
I like that.
Yeah. And the more 3-syllable words children know, the bigger their capacity for vocabulary is. And also too, I was thinking about it. I'm like, we're about to go into an election as I finished writing it. And I'm like, we might end up with a president who is in his 70s, almost an 80-year-old man who has the vocabulary of a 6-year-old. Well, I want this 5-year-old to have a bigger vocabulary that man who could possibly run the country again. And so I was very deliberate, and I'm very proud of the work that came out. And I'm like, shout out to the people who, Blue Sky, who told me that they bought their book, and also too, I advertised it on Twitter because like it's the only thing I tweeted in a while. And everybody who's bought the book, I'm just really grateful and excited. And I actually this weekend, tomorrow, am purchasing a certain number of author copies so that I can sign. So if you want a signed copy of the book, you can actually email me directly at akstaggers.
Okay. All right.
akstaggers@gmail.com, or you can email Dr. Vibe, or you can just shoot us a note in the Discord group. But I will be selling a certain number of autograph copies. The book itself, it's retailing for, I think it's $22.95, bn.com. So you buy it through Barnes & Noble. I have not put it up on Amazon. I'm feeling kind of funky about certain platforms because of the DEI stuff that we're going to talk about later. So Barnes & Noble was really good to me in terms of how they did this. It's on there, you buy it through them. I am going to go through some of my local bookstores. I am donating a few to libraries. My best friend is a principal. She bought several copies for her school, and she's also on the board of a library in Maryland, and so she bought a copy for the library too. So I'm very, very excited. But yeah, that's what's been going on.
All right. I don't think we have to top that. I think that speaks for itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a break, and then the rest of this conversation today is all about those three letters, DEI. So we'll be right back in about 30 seconds with a very enriching conversation. Here we go. Black Men Can Talk, a show where Black Canadian come together to have real unfiltered conversations about life, culture, and community. Brothers, what is up?
A lot of kids just there just have no engagement whatsoever. They're literally just letting their days go by and they're not advancing in what they need to know.
We really don't give enough credit to how much impact our unhealed trauma has on the future generations.
I realized what we were doing had a great impact within our community.
That is another conversation I host Sunday nights live, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Black Men Can Talk. And that's myself and two co-hosts, Kofi Morris and Paul Osborne, just hosting conversations from a Black Canadian male lens. All right, before we get right into it, let's do some house stuff. Check out Girlfriends Chat with Aisha LaLa and Jill Jones at Patreon. Jill has to get back here, even if it's a special guest appearance. All right. Primetime.
Yeah, I'll shoot her a message because
we
have a lot to talk. We have a lot to talk about.
You think? Then we have Primetime Saturday Show Store. There is the link. Then we have the Discord group. Email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com, and subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. We want more subscribers. 1670, please. Then like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm on. dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. All right. Before we get into our main topic, ladies, your YouTube shorts are blowing up. I don't know if you've been looking.
I like it.
I was chatting with LaLa, I think 2 days ago, or maybe even yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago.
Right.
And I've been showing putting on my YouTube page some of the shorts from the January 18th conversation, I believe. And they are getting very well received. So you are on fire.
Wow.
All right.
Because we're talking about stuff that matters, and it's worth. We're not like doing clickbait. We're giving solutions.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, it's just been crazy. So it's all good. All right. The conversation topic for today: the attack on DI, from the criminalization of it to the erasure of people's lives and experiences to the kind of action Blacks can take or should take in this moment. I've got a number of questions for you, ladies. So I'm going to start it off here. First things first.
Start with questions. Yeah.
How did we get to this point where DEI is being criminalized in certain states and institutions and organizations?
It's
I
all
can tell
about
you.
power and hate. That's all it
Yeah.
is. It's power and racism. So anything that they want to criminalize anything that they don't want in life, period. And they want their racist agenda, which is based purely on racism and white supremacy. So why not, while we have the opportunity, make it a crime to include everybody?
I mean, we're going back here to whether people realize it or not. We're still going back to Barack Obama being elected.
Yeah.
Let's be very clear, because it's the one thing that they haven't said, but they would like to say it. Barack Obama, in their opinion, was a DEI president. And so everything that enabled him to become a president, they want to get rid of, which means they started with affirmative action in the courts. And notice how they took over the language. They didn't have a language for how to address this. They started with CRT, but people kept saying, well, CRT, it's college, graduate level, study, et cetera, et cetera. Most people are like, what are you talking about? What is CRT? No one could define it. No one could pinpoint and say what it was. But CRT only incorporated race. It didn't incorporate all the different groups of people that they hated, down to people with varied abilities, people, age, weight, everything, LGBTQ. It didn't include all, it wasn't a catch-all. They tried to make it a catch-all, but it wasn't. So then they went with woke. Right. And we have this because what ended up happening is you had young white hipsters who are on the liberals, who are liberal. But then you also have the leftists, the young white leftists, who took our phrase woke and started using it to the point. So that was another point that angered them. It's like, oh, you got our young kids out here saying woke. Really? We got to stop that. But again, that didn't latch on either, because woke ideology, what the hell does that mean? People the people who created the phrase stay woke are like, woke ideology, we would have never put those together. And then what is that ideology? Oh, you mean differences? Oh, you mean people who aren't like you? So there was a blowback on that, and no one, and then there was a lot of embarrassment too, right? Because there were videos of people saying, well, how do you define woke? What is woke? Define it. And when it became clear that woke was synonymous with everything they didn't like, and people said, oh, well, yeah, everything's woke, and it didn't catch on. And also too, DEI started talking about it because you ended up having people who were running businesses whether they were good at it or bad at it, but people who were training companies and corporations in boardrooms, C-suite level executives, how to be more diverse, how to be more tolerant, right? And so when it came something that companies, corporations, government, local, state, and federal started to adopt and put in writing in terms of their mission, in terms of their employment piece. And they're like, aha, now we have something. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Because whether it be Betty, whether it be Jedi, whether it be whatever, because some people go belonging, equity, diversity, inclusion. Some people it's justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, whatever, right? But all these companies and corporations started doing it. And so what ended up bothering people more than anything was like, wait, it's one thing when this is something that voluntarily, that people are doing, that it's when it becomes something that I'm required to do to work here, I think not. And then when I decide I'm not going to show up and then you penalize me for it, oh, we got to get rid of this. Because I can tell you, I've sat on boards where the organization itself said it was committed to racial equity and combating discrimination, went through diversity training, and you have board members that didn't want to do it. And those were probably the ones that needed it the most, right? And so I think that the erasure of the attack on DEI is part of a three-pronged approach where Trump has three pillars of attacks that he wants to launch. The first is retribution on anyone who investigated him or anything close to him that had his name. He's been sitting on that for 4 years. He put a pin in that. Okay. The second is immigration, because the immigration thing, he failed the first time. It made him look bad. And it's something that works with his base. It's how he got elected. The third is DEI. And the reason that he couldn't figure out what it was or how it is, but he is still mad that Barack Obama embarrassed the hell out of him. And he's like, well, if we attack all the DEI stuff, I can try and erase this black man's presidency. I can try and erase because all the people that came after me were black. I can try and erase all these people. It's part of his retribution. It's always been who he is. But the people who work with him hate it just as much and attack it with such a fervor. I mean, let's be very clear. All the stuff we see going on with USA Aid, that's because of they have diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives worldwide, right? This thing with the Board of Education, with the Department of Education, again, they've got those things, right? The fact that we have someone who's not even elected, not even appointed to a real office, that has been appointed a budget, going in, closing down Treasury, closing down the Department of Education. They took the U.S. aid words off the Reagan building. It is insane. They are trying so hard to erase the people that they don't like. It is disgusting. And
beyond disgusting.
It's beyond disgusting. And at the same token, you've got to be aware and awake, because they're throwing, it's like, he's not just throwing a handful of spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. He's throwing the whole pot and hoping that we get so overwhelmed that we just give up completely, when the solution really is, okay, he threw the whole pot of spaghetti at us. We have to remove it piece by piece.
Okay.
But Steve O'Bannon told us this he told us this in his first term, that this is what they were going to do. And what drives me absolutely nuts more than anything is, we know that this is what they're doing, but why are people acting like this is something new? There is nothing about this new. They tell you everything that they're going to do, but still yet you want to live in La La Land talking about, oh, I didn't know they was going to do that. That's bullshit, because they told you from the get-go. All of them can't keep their mouths shut.
Trump can't hold water. What makes you think that he can hold secrets? The minute that man had nuclear codes and secrets, he had Russian oligarchs in his office being like, oh, you want me to show you something? He had Kid Rock at Mar-a-Lago like, oh, let me show you these maps. Let me show you these classified maps. This man can't hold water. It's obvious he can't even hold government secrets, because we saw them in the toilet.
Okay, hold a moment. I've got a whole. I forgot to acknowledge comments right at the beginning, so I got to do some catching up. So, hello everyone. Jen Myers says hello everyone. She also says we're currently having our second storm this week with snow, ice, freezing rain, and sleet.
Yeah, we're on our third.
Yeah, hello JJ Mars from Colorado, as always. What's the weather like in Colorado? He also says, I asked him if he's good. He says, always. Regina says, hey all, glad to be back home. There's a huge DEI thread among retired workers. We feel DEI among retired teachers. We feel DEI wasn't enough. It was too superficial in its implementation. We need more. She also says, yeah, the whole woke thing was absurd, but weaponizing was all blank. You'll watch. I'm not going to say it. You can watch it. She also says, yep, she was away and missed you guys for a few weeks. And she says, when I started teaching, I began learning on my own, for the most part, about the real American history. It needs to be taught. And she says, I asked her where she was. She was in the armpit of Florida. Okay. And she goes, and a lot of Black and brown kids don't know their history either. Learning the real story empowers everybody. She also says, accept racist, but teaching history also prevents some people from becoming racist. It connects the dots. One more thing, and she goes 1,000,000% LaLa. They announced their intentions from every corner. All right.
Right.
Back to you,
Project
ladies.
2025 is not a secret. I think the thing is, this is what kills me. What we're seeing right now is Project 2025 101. Everything that we tried to tell people, everything that Taraji P. Henson told people at the BET Awards, go look it up because it's going to happen if they get in power. And then here they are, and people are like, I didn't think that they meant it. What, you thought they were just saying it? What, was this for play?
Please.
This isn't kindergarten. They're not playing schoolyard games. These people are serious. They're very, very serious.
And one of the co-authors of that report, is he now on the office
He got confirmed.
Yes, Office of Budget Management.
And if you don't know, the Office of Budget and Management is really the epicenter of the whole government, because they are the ones who determine when the government is spending too much money. They literally manage the budget. They're the ones who advise Congress on what Congress can and cannot afford.
All right. Another conversation piece. How do these attacks on DEI compare to past historical events to suppress Black progress, such as Reconstitution era rollbacks and civil rights movement resistance?
I mean, it's a continuation of that, really, right? I mean, we had some gains in the civil rights era, but you think, if you sit and you think about it, we haven't had really a whole lot of monumental civil rights gains for Black people since the early 70s, right? You had the LGBTQ, you had marriage equality, but they want to roll that back, and that is what, just 10 years, right? That's just 10 years, 2015. So, and then you're talking about they won't even codify the Equal Rights for Women Act. They won't codify it. And that was from the 70s. So we're talking about something that's 50 years old. They haven't codified. So I think that it's no different than in the past. I think the difference is that there are more generations, there are more post-integration generations alive than pre-integration generations. And so all of this feels very new for at least 4 living generations. Ex-millennials, Z and Alpha.
Like I said, and I still stand
Go ahead,
beside
LaLa.
the fact that we became comfortable because a lot of the fight was right before our generation. And so our parents and grandparents were the ones who was out there fighting the good fight. And then we got to sit back and reap the rewards of those. Even though, if you ask me, we didn't make as many as we thought, we got comfortable with what we got. And now we're seeing how easy it could be stripped away. But we also need to stop playing around and trying to figure out, hey, listen, our parents did the fight. It's time for us to pick up the banner. How we do that is got to be different because it's not the same fight. This is a different set of weapons being formed against us. This is not like marches will work. Although you are not seeing that there are some very successful marches and protests going on. Denver has one right now that is just out of this world, that they are fighting back as much as they can. San Bernardino, California is fighting back about immigration rules. And someone that I know obviously tried to test me on that, and sent me the footage and said, oh, I didn't mean to send that to you. Yes, you did. But while you did, I'm letting you know that if I was in California at this time, I would be standing on the front lines fighting with them. Let's make that very clear. So, you got people trying to test you to see if you're going to stand firm on what you believe in, because we're not seeing that part being reported because they don't want you to see it. But there are many protests going on successfully right now. Will they work? No, but we've got to get a little smarter as well. Because
and I think this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I think you're right? And I think this goes back to like the civil rights era. People seem to think of it as, oh, there were these collective movements, these collective marches and things that everybody went to and did. No, actually, when you look at it, there were all these different marches and sit-ins and protests in different areas occurring at the same the bus boycott thing, they tried in several different places before the Montgomery one, right? They tried in South Carolina, they tried in other places, right? So the large ones that we know about were large because there were other smaller ones that were tested first to see how it would go over, for people to see what some of the obstacles were, for them to see who might come up and show up and get in their faces, and how to react, and what kind of training they needed. And I think that this return to those smaller protests like you're talking about, Lala, is probably very good for us at this point. I think that the battles will need to be fought on. There's so much chaos.
Yeah.
So much craziness at the federal level, that I think it's easier, more manageable to attack things at the local level, where you have direct impact, direct control. Because the bottom line is, we can't even get to the point where we can touch the federal government, because our politicians at the federal government are so incapacitated by the fact that this guy keeps running roughshod over them and over their constitutional powers. And we literally have to sit back and let the judges handle that, and tell him, like what he tried to do with this USA aid, and tried to get these people to accept a buyout that hadn't even been approved financially. Right. And just so you guys know, I do want to make this point clear, because I thought about this in my car today. The guy that he just appointed to the Office of Management and Budget has the power to say, oh, yeah, those 60,000 people that agreed to take the buyout, if the judge lifts it and says that the buyout can go through, y'all don't have the money to pay them. So you can't pay them. And these people are out of a job. Donald Trump said he was going to bring jobs back to the country. 60,000 people are without a job on paper.
Lala?
They need to toe the line. And those federal workers who are hearing me say that right now, you know what I'm talking about. I have spoken to several people on the inside. That is your mantra: toe the line. We do have you. I know you're feeling scared. I know that you're feeling unsure, but do not let them bully you out of something that you earned, especially if you have worked so hard to even get into those positions. You know darn well where you're there, rightfully so. So toe the line. We got you. We don't know how we got you right now, but all I can say is, we're still supporting you. Do not be bullied out of it. I actually did a really great broadcast with a very good friend of mine this past week.
Oh, you do many good broadcasts. Right? Let's just say it's one. All right, go on.
That she has seen the brunt of what's going on in the federal jobs, and so she's a clinical psychologist. She's a nurse. And she deals with people with anxiety and things like that. And she gives them tools. And on my Facebook page, and I will be uploading it on my YouTube page as well, she gives you tools on how to reduce your anxiety. And that's what I can tell you right now. That's something that I can give to you to support you, is to, if you're feeling that anxiety, you're feeling worried, let's give you a couple of tools to help lessen that. And I can tell you, just from what I'm going through in Mississippi and the politics of that and the red tape, the little things that we did on that broadcast this week was so releasing for me. And I think one of them will be very surprising for you. So please feel free to go to my Facebook page, Laura LaLa Key. Go look at it there, and I will be uploading it on YouTube to help you relieve some of the anxiety, because we understand nobody wants to be bullied into getting these awful emails saying you need to quit. You're not needed. You're not worth it, because that's what they're saying. That's what the emails actually say.
Yeah. And people, I'm thankful for a lot of these federal workers, because they're speaking out. They've got more courage than members of Congress. They're speaking out, and they're also doing little things that are legal, that are keeping some of these people at bay. But what I have to say is, if you're a federal worker and they're asking you, don't do it and don't quit. You make them fire you. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these firings, these buyouts, first of all, are unconstitutional.
Oh, they're
The
completely
fi-
unconstitutional. What did we say
As-
last week? And
Yep,
I want you
as-
to remember again, go
Yep.
buy a copy of the Constitution right now, because they're doing everything they can to get them off the shelves and also off of all government pages.
Yep. And a lot of the things that they're doing are illegal too, because remember, Congress is the one that says that determines whether or not the buyout money is there. The buyout money, you got to remember, that money has to be in the budget. They don't go again for a budget renewal until March. So the budget for this period has already been agreed upon. Them telling the federal workers that they can work till September with their benefits and full pay is a lie. It's a lie, because they won't know what the budget is until March. And I promise you, when that man goes in, he will tell them, oh, guess what? Don't got the money. Sorry, can't do it.
No job, no money.
Right. And remember, a lot of these people too, I need to be very clear, and this is why I wanted to have this DEI conversation. A lot of the people who have been told to resign or have been let go or who are caught up in this are connected to any kind of program that has to do with DEI. And one of the things that I went and read too was this latest executive order on what constitutes DEI in this country. So even anyone that gets federal funding in anything on their website or in any of their paperwork mentions disenfranchised, mentions what's the word that starts with a D? Disadvantaged. Anything that mentions those kinds of words like that, anything that mentions racism, race, any of those things, immigration, LGBTQ, they will lose their funding. But beyond that, Pam Bondi said she's going to see if these organizations can be criminally prosecuted. What is the fucking crime that they committed? What's the crime? You can't
being
criminally.
Black, Aisha, being Black.
I know, but guess what? Yes, we know that's a social crime, but let's be perfectly honest. There's nothing in any of our criminal codes that lists that as a crime. You can't prosecute people and investigate people for something that isn't a crime. Or and the other thing too that's against the law, whether it be federal or state, you can't investigate people for crimes that they haven't committed. You can't even investigate people on the suspicion of crimes unless you have credible evidence that they committed one or probable cause. Just the fact that somebody worked for a diversity, equity, and inclusion office doesn't mean that you have probable cause to investigate them. Who the hell do these people think they are?
They're criminals. They're criminals, period. All of them. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. The people who are getting voted in know nothing about what they're doing. I wish I had one of those jobs that Pam Bondi wanted to criminally investigate, so I could look at her and be like, bitch, what? Do it. It made me so mad when I heard that she was going to do that. And you know what makes me even more mad? John Fetterman. What is up with him?
He voted for that woman. He voted for RFK, or did they delayed RFK vote? But he said he's a yes for Tulsi. He voted for Pete Hegseth. And now this fool talks about he wants to run for president in 2028. I'm sorry, but Black folks, we have to remember, we're probably going to have to remind him about his anti-DEI stance and the Black man that he tried to harm.
All right, I want to ask another conversation piece. We got some. So Regina says, back to unfunded mandates. SMH also says the administration and its henchmen are the crime.
Right, when criminals, we're in a bad way when criminals can investigate people for crimes.
All right. Next conversation piece. What are the biggest misconceptions about DEI that opponents use to justify its dismantling?
They think
Black.
it all means black
Black.
people.
Black.
But white women are the top beneficiaries to this.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
hold up. I need to say something here because we are going to talk about it. So please stick around because we just said that white women are the top beneficiaries of DEI. Wait till you hear another story that we're going to talk about. Just remember what I said. Put a bookmark in your brain. Wait till we get to that story.
I mean, honestly, if they could get away with saying the N word, they would. But DEI is coded, it's loaded, and it hits for them. It sounds just as fulfilling to say anti-DEI or woke ideology. They get the same kind of release from that they do from saying the N word, which oddly for a lot of them is also a sexual release. Thus, we have all these incels. So yeah, and most incels are racist. So yeah.
Okay, and
there is a very fine line between hate and sexual fulfillment for a lot of these people.
Okay, then what? Then
And
why?
The only person who would have laughed at that out loud and who would have understood it and agreed would have been Jill.
So then, why is it being framed as a threat, and who benefits from its erasure?
White men. White
White
men.
men.
Period. And that's what they want. This is clearly white men, Christian nationalist, Project 2025. Y'all laughed at us when we told you that this shit was real. And people are still laughing. Because someone laughed at me this week and said, "Oh, you're still talking about that. Oh, fear factor." I was like, "Bitch, did you read it?" Because it plays just like the play. Everything that they're doing is doing the exact thing that they said. They're implementing everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a white Christian nationalist was caught on tape again. I love how all these people, don't think that they're going to be recorded by somebody. Came out and actually said, well, okay, yeah, we'll be able to do this, and this term. But when we get him in the next term, we're going to finish this out.
Well, what's so odd about all of this too, right? Is that they're so anti-DEI and so against all of this stuff. But the first person that was fired from the Trump administration or was told to resign or let go was let go for being racist on Twitter. One of those little kids that Elon Musk hired for his douche office, right? One of those people that he hired for saying all the racist stuff. Well, what do you all expect? Everything he said is basically true. What he said in terms of what they're doing, what he said about, it's being racist is cool again. Yeah, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make, when they say make America great again, it's not just make America white again. It's make racism okay again. That's what they mean.
It is in their mind. It is in their mind.
Yeah. And then let's be very, very clear. We have to be honest with something. We know that the next presidency will end in 2028, actually 2029. And the reason they're scrambling so hard to keep Donald Trump another 4 years, because somebody did introduce a bill for him to be president again, saying that they want to change the Constitution to where it says that a president can only serve 2 terms, to say that they can serve two consecutive terms. 2 consecutive terms. Period. But if they did 1 term and then they didn't win the next one and then somebody else won, after that they still have 2 consecutive terms that they can do. So understand that would then mean that this person would be out at 2035, right when we are just 4 years out from being a majority minority country. as they're saying that we're going to be a majority minority country between 2041 and 2046. Now, what was it? 10 years ago, they were saying 2050, right? Or 20 years ago, they're saying 2050. And it's been getting closer and closer and closer. Now they're saying by 2030, it's estimated that will be just at or just below 54% white in this country. And what I'm thinking is the rush to do this, why all this so fast, so much so fast? Because I have a feeling that that the numbers are a lot higher in terms of the majority minority population than we think, and that we are on track to being a majority minority country by 2030, which would mean at the dawn of a new presidency, at the next election, this country is going to be a majority minority country. Think about that. It's a year and a half away from being a majority minority country.
I think we're closer to it than that.
I do too. I actually, to be perfectly honest, I think we're here already.
Thank you.
I think that is why they don't care who they're deporting.
That's right.
And they're like, oh, we're only deporting the criminals. Well, Jose here, he works. He's got a court date. He's working. He's paying, but he's here illegally. So that's a crime. So guess what? We're going to deport. But he has a court date, and being here is not a crime with a court date. But they're throwing all the rules out.
Indian people, the people of India. I don't want people to get
Right.
confused. They sent a lot of them back this week. Who was in the
They sure
process?
did.
Put them on that plane so fast and sent them back. And there was a young lady who came on absolutely just devastated. She is from the Ukraine. Her and her mom came here right. They did the paperwork. She did all of that. She says, we're working, we're paying taxes. And we got the letter today that said, you have to go home. She said, to where? My home was bombed. Ukraine is bombed. Where are we going to go? They are putting her on the plane and her mom and sending her back.
We've got other Ukraine refugees. But listen, we've got other Ukraine refugees and Afghan refugees who are scheduled to come here and have been told that they cannot.
Okay, let me catch up
and then,
here.
And then we're going to also have to eventually deal with, too, you're talking about getting rid of DEI. Well, what do you think the whole plan for Gaza is?
We won't even start with that.
They're trying to get rid of these brown people in their own country.
All right, Regina
he's
says
trying to colonize a place all over it. This isn't 1462.
So Regina says Black women are too successful for the white racist community. For the first time in 300 years, they caught a break and zoomed ahead 200 miles per hour, which stoked the racists. Dr. Tachi says, hello all. Regina says, this is Custer's last blank stand, TBH. They're good. They're going to lose. It's inevitable. And Regina says, Dr. Tachi, speak on the DEI attacks dismantling. So Dr. Tachi, if you want to come on and join the ladies and talk about this, just put your comment up and I'll DM you the link. I also want to ask, what does the dismantling of DEI programs mean for Black women in the workplace, academia, and leadership roles?
There won't be any spots. That means there's no spots, period. If they don't want you there, you will not be allowed in those areas. First of all, they don't even want white women working, to be honest. They want them home bearing children. So what the hell do you think that they want for us? Back in the kitchen and back serving them white families. That is what this means. Now, you can take it that way, but in this horrible situation, there's always a fucking light. And I'm going to tell you right now, we are the ones who are going to have to save our own selves. Don't be looking for some white man to come and save you. You create the opportunities in your areas.
Right. I mean, there were never actual quotas in these schools. White men specifically made that up. But I promise you from now on, we're going to start to see quotas in these schools. And the quota from the federal government will be how many white students, particularly white male students, did you let in compared to how many students of color that you let in. And if you didn't let in a substantial number of white people that we think is okay, guess what? We're not going to approve student loans for your school, which means that the majority of women and people of color and poor students will not be able to go to college. Colleges will then be flooded with majority white men. So what does that also mean for the HBCUs, for the historical Hispanic serving institutions, for the AAPI, the historically AAPI serving institutions, because there are those, and the indigenous institutions, right? What does that mean for them? They won't be able to give federal student loans. And also too, I don't like the fact, and let's be very clear, if you have student loans, had student loans, or any of that stuff, the fact that Elon Musk and his pimple face brat brigade are standing at the Department of Education yesterday, which then, and the US Treasury, it also means they have access to your social security number. They know how much you have in loans, how much you owe. They know all of that information. And I'm sorry, but my 22-year-old doesn't know all that information about me. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and be happy and take it while somebody else's 20-year-old brat who can't even get a girlfriend.
I find it very ironic. Did you see them? Did you see these young brats?
What did I say the last time? And what did I say the show before that? I said we are living in a nerd's fever dream. That we have a whole bunch of people who are unpopular in high school, trying to get their revenge on the world, and now they have positions of power.
I just want to
They
touch
don't even know how to wash their ass.
And Elon Musk looks like a deranged and demented Cabbage Patch.
Okay.
All right. Just for those who are watching live, if you're watching it on my YouTube channel, The Dr. Vibe Show, I have a poll up there. And the question is, do you agree with 47 wanting to erase DI programs? So you can vote. It's in real time, the poll right now. Right now, based on votes, everyone's saying no. All right. Let me go to another conversation point for everybody here. Let me just do it. All right. So then, how does the erasure of Black history and experiences through book bans, DEI, curriculum changes, and workplace policies impact future generations?
If
Well,
we
it's more
don't
than
teach it at home, our children will never know. Listen, a lot of us learned of our own history because it was taught to us orally by our parents, by our grandparents, sitting on our grandparents' knees. I clearly remember being told about my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather. I've seen the pictures of the whips on their backs. Do you understand? This is in my lifetime that I have seen that. So if you don't teach this at home, our children will not get it. This is why Aisha's book is important. This is Aisha, like, you got to do things like go for the authors that we know that are teaching the right thing to our children. Listen, it's easy for you to even write a daggone book, okay? Go to ChatGPT, do whatever you need to do to write a book, do your oral history, and show your children and talk to your children about our history. You can't let them erase it, and they can't erase it as long as we keep it alive. It's on us. It's not on them anymore. There is no how will this affect us in the corporate and the death of the United States. It is us choosing to let it die or picking up the banner and teaching our children so that it can live on. Period.
Yeah. And you know, I think we're going to have to go back to having our own books. I've been doing this, but I think that we should probably go do it. There are tons of thrift bookstores, like thrift books I love. There's Better World Books. But going back and getting these old editions of books and keeping them and passing them on, because one of the things that we're going to find is that we've got all these generations that now when people want to go look for information or they want to go find what something looked like way back when, they go to the internet and they do a Google search. Well, one of the things you'll find is that a lot of these signs and these pictures, these black and white pictures from the 50s and 60s of people with their signs that should really say N-word, go home, because they did, now say things like Negro, go home, or Black person, go home, right? And they aren't just erasing history by banning books. They're trying to change it. So see, the racists weren't so bad. They just wanted their own stuff. And it's not wrong to want to only be around white people. No, guess what? There are times where I don't feel like being around white people. I'll be honest. And I want to just be around my family and my friends who look like me and share my experience. And is that wrong? No. But I'll tell you what, my reasons for doing that are very different. Because see, guess what? You not wanting to be around Black people because you don't like looking at us or what have you. It's I want to be around people who look like me because guess what? I want to have sit and have a conversation and not have to talk about race or have to talk about this asshole in the office. I want to sit and talk about things that, people to realize that guess what? I have other interests outside of these things and talk to people on that level. But also too, I know I'm not going to experience any racial microaggressions. So at least that's one thing I might not have to deal with in that conversation. And just so you know, you have to pick and choose your spaces sometimes because it's about protecting your peace, but it's also about, I'm not 20. I don't feel like being exhausted every time I talk to Karen. I don't feel like it. But I know if I talk to somebody who looks like me, I know if I talk to LaLa, I come away uplifted. It's a good conversation. I'm cool. We talked about a whole bunch of things and none of it had to do with this. And guess what? And even the things that had to do with this, I don't feel so much despair. I feel like I have a comrade. And
Right.
truth be told, when it comes to allyship, I know we've had these conversations, and this goes back to the DEI conversation and white women being the largest beneficiaries of it. Let's start talking about you. White women, you want to know why we don't trust you? Let's start talking about this. You all knew that you were the largest beneficiaries of DEI and affirmative action. And what do? Instead of getting in those spaces and helping to make things easier so that we can also get a come up, instead, you step on our necks. You kiss up to the people who are also stepping on our necks. And then you do this thing with Black men to try and separate them from us. And it's very distrustful for us to do that. But also I got to thinking about this. I had this conversation with my daughter in the car today. I got to thinking about this. The other part when it comes to the voting part, comes when Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were running against each other. I remember when I wasn't sure, and white women were basically like, you really need to vote for a woman. We need a woman. We need a woman. It's like, but wait a second. So basically you're telling me that I got to choose? I got to choose what part of me I feel allegiance to? And when it comes down to it, it's always going to be the Black part. Because regardless if you see me as a woman or not, you see me as Black first. I don't get to be a woman first. White women get to do that.
All right, let's comment here from Regina. Says Langston Hughes, Aunt Sue's Stories. There you go. And earlier on, Aisha, I think the book you wanted to remember it was Up from Slavery.
Okay, that was Frederick Douglass.
Yes, it was. So I just wanted.
That's what I knew it was Up from Slavery, but I always get confused because Frederick Douglass and Booker T. Washington's books have similar titles.
Yeah. Another conversation. LaLa, you good?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. Okay. Another conversation piece for both of you can share with us. What unique challenges do Black women face in the fight for DEI compared to Black men or other marginalized groups?
We've been listen. This one's a hard one because sometimes I feel we fight against our own men. They don't want to see women there, and I'm not all, but there are a lot of them for the same reason they didn't want to vote for Kamala is the same reason they won't uplift us and hold us up to these positions and things like that, and won't support us in that. A Black man who doesn't want to support a Black woman will not do so, and they will not change their mind because they feel like that lessens them in some kind of way. Now, I am blessed, very blessed, that is not the way I came up. My uncles, my dad, my husband, they don't feel like that. But I have seen in other families and other men that have actually told me that they would rather die than to see a Black woman do better than them. So this is still an internal fight. And until that changes in their minds and in their hearts, we're still going to continue to struggle with that. That's going to be a different battle. That's a battle from within.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, Frederick Douglass is escape from slavery. Booker T. Washington up from slavery. So that's why it's like they get confused. But Lala, everything that you said is spot on. It's spot on. And guess what?
That's why she's one of the smartest. That's why she's
a
one
lot
of
of
the
them are
smartest
why we're
people
here
on the
now.
planet.
Huh?
Yeah.
I
That's why
didn't
she's
hear
one of the that's why she's one of the smartest ladies on the planet. Smartest people on the planet.
And guess what, Lala? Those men are part of the reason we're here now. Because they just couldn't vote for her. So they chose to either not vote or they voted for him.
Right. Yeah.
And guess what? A lot of them are out of jobs. I just want to say that the majority of people being fired from DEI jobs, from DEI programs and jobs, guess who they are? Black women.
Black women. Oh yeah. Well, I knew that. I think I've shared it on this platform from last. Was it last or even maybe 2 years ago? Black woman, DEI professional.
Yep.
Knows their stuff. Let me just get a drink of water here. My throat. Okay, just mute first. Okay, DI professional. She took a contract with Walmart Canada, not Walmart US, Walmart Canada, to work on their DI initiative. She quit after 6 months.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you too.
Walmart US family, that's Walmart Canada.
But listen, it's a hard space to work in, period. One of the things that I really worry about now, and knowing this because it used to be my job, it used to be one of my jobs. But all of these minority affairs offices and African American affairs, Latino affairs, Asian American affairs, Indigenous affairs offices in every state. I really am worried about those starting to be shuttered. In some states, they actually act as
Aisha, that's inevitable because if you're
seeing they actually act as a state institution.
It's on. You're seeing education institutions. That's the next thing.
But see, the thing is, the reason I worry about them is because in every state they're set up differently. So, like in some states, they are actual legislative. They're legislative commissions that act just as legislative commissions. In other states, like the one that I worked for in South Carolina, was a legislative commission that was created as a separate state agency. So what if the state of South Carolina decides it doesn't need that anymore? Doesn't need the state agency anymore? Not only that, but the agency, the way that they set up the agency, it said in the legislation that created it that they could not focus on issues of discrimination. When I worked there, we had to focus on issues related to poverty. So every state has it different. Because remember, a lot of these started with these Black men initiatives. And so a lot of them, I wonder, the ones that do get any kind of federal grants and federal funding, that money's going to dry up. Those offices, those commissions, they're going to have to close. Like New York City has one that's very, very thorough. They have the African American Planning Commission that not only helps with housing and jobs and childcare and education, But honestly, I think that if they close that, they help people who have addiction problems, help people get access to mental health, help people get access to job training. I worry that, like, what if New York City can't fund that anymore?
Mhm.
You have a lot of people who are going to be missing a lot of services. A lot of these organizations, these entities do the wraparound services for Black people that we can't get other places.
Um, okay, I could go one of two ways here. Do you want me to put up that story up about SAVE, or do you want another conversation piece?
Well,
About what
I think that SAVE is part of this.
it is.
Okay. All right. So let's go that direction. I still have a few more things I want to ask both of you about, but I think we'll put up the SAVE piece now because a lot of people probably are not familiar at all about this. So let's put
No,
it up.
because it's being done sneakily.
Right.
So the SAVE Act would require all Americans to prove their citizenship with documentation unavailable to millions and upend every American citizen registered to vote. Talk about it, ladies.
Okay, so this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to fix it once again with the votings by taking away your rights. And what they're doing is they're trying to make it where your ID has to match everything. Even if you're married, if your married name doesn't match your birth certificate or vice versa or something like that, then you no longer can be put on the rolls. So it mandates that individuals present specific documents such as a passport or a birth certificate to verify your citizenship. But however, many women who have adopted their spouse's surname may not have a birth certificate that matches their current legal name. They're not taking that into
You won't. You won't. Who does that? No, I mean, first of all, sorry to interrupt you, but first of all, who goes and changes the document that was created when they were born to reflect the name they changed to when they got married?
You
That
can't.
makes absolutely no sense. I mean, you actually can change your name on your birth certificate, but there will be, the thing is that at the bottom it will show that there was a name change when by the seal. They have to write that. Not only that, but it's a process. You actually have to go file paperwork to get it done, get it approved. In some places you have to go to court,
Yeah.
have a judge approve it. And then on top of that, it costs you, at least I know here, because I just want to add middle name to mine, costs you $300.
Yeah. And about Kentucky, about the same.
It is insane. Like, I think about someone like my mom, for example, her first name is spelled differently on her birth certificate than it is on her driver's license. What about people like that?
I have a family member who has been trying to get their passport for the last 6 years. Her birth certificate is right, but when someone put her name into the system while she was doing something else, they accidentally put an additional character in her name, which was always been a battle. And my maiden name has always been a battle. People always wanted to spell it a certain way when it was never spelled that way. And they did that. And because of that, they put it in the system wrong. She can't find her original birth certificate. They told her, like, you need to have your original birth certificate with the raised seal to show for us to get you a passport, all from one little letter character that some idiot put in wrong later on. And she's been battling for 5 years. She's like, I don't want to have to go and pay to legally change my own name so that I can get a passport. These are the things that are going to happen, especially when and she's not even a married name. If someone actually put in your name wrong, now you have to go back and battle for your own name. Now, listen, this is going to disenfranchise women first and foremost. This is why they don't want your ass voting in the first place. They're taking you back to where you can't vote. But what do you think is going to happen to the LGBTQ plus community? There was actually several people who have reported that when they got their passports back, They got the
They had
wrong
their
sex.
mail. Yeah. Yeah. Well, too, the other thing that should really upset people is that, remember, anyone who's 60 or over, their names, the names that they went by, or the name that's on their birth certificate, might not be the way that they've always spelled their name. Because remember, back then the nurses would fill out this paperwork, right? The nurse would fill out this paperwork. So suppose you told the nurse you want to name someone, something like Allison, and you had in mind that you were going to just spell it with one L, and they wrote it with two.
Yeah. My last
And you
name,
didn't know any of this until you get it back.
Trowell. That was the problem. My maiden last name was Trowell. There are two sets of Trowells only because white people could not get it right. My dad and my family was adamant. You spell my last name with one L, not two. It's not Trowell, it's Trowell. Okay. And so this is the battle that I've had all my life. And I've always had to correct people about that. I'm blessed enough to have my original birth certificate. I already have my passport. If you don't have your passport, you need to do it now. Now. Did I say that strong enough for you? You should have it any damn way. Okay? You should have your passport anyway. Whether you plan on using it or not, you need it. So you need to do that now.
I put in for mine. And my daughter, like, I'm getting her together with the driver's license stuff. She still hasn't gotten the driver's license yet, and getting that and the real ID and all that too. Also, if your driver's license isn't a real ID, you're gonna need to do that, because the thing of it is that what their thing says is, with the SAVE Act, is that they'll accept passports. Real ID is one of those ones that they will accept. So you've got to make sure, and like a lot of states are moving toward doing that. But if you have a state ID, you can't qualify for a real ID with just a state ID. A driver's license can become a real ID, but for some reason a state one can't if you don't drive.
Well, when we had to change ours to Florida gave us when you had.
Well, they're saying real IDs won't count.
Yeah,
which is what every state is going to.
Excuse me, hold on, stop. Why the fuck did you make everybody say that you gotta
have to go to a real ID?
Here's the deadline, and now you're not even going to honor it.
Nope, they're saying no. That will not count. That will not count. Guess what else won't count? Military ID.
How the fuck does the military ID not count?
Yep. And guess what? 5% of the look, 5% of the population will be affected by the name thing, because that being the number of women who will have to do this. They've made it so no one can vote except for the people that they want to. Look at it. I'm reading this from this is from the AmericanProgress.org. They say that 1,153,766 female citizens in Alabama 15 years or older don't possess a birth certificate that has their current legal name.
All right, let me move on. Regina says, I was frisked at the airport because they said my genital area was male. It isn't. Then I said, what happens if I did have a blank? How is that a crime? Because my name is female. Okay. Let me move to another
comment. More of that.
But it's going to be so odd. I went to college with a guy named Shannon.
Well, look at Shannon Sharp.
Yep. What about guys named Leslie? Because
Okay.
Leslie and Shannon were male names before they were female names. What about women named Taylor or Tyler?
All right. Let me move on to another conversation piece, because so what strategies can Black professionals use to navigate workplaces where DI protections are being rolled back?
Let them fire you.
I know. I'm sorry, Dr. Bob. I know you're asking really great questions. You are. But the answer is always going to be, we're going to be the ones who's going to get kicked in the neck every
Mm-hmm.
single time because we are Black women.
Yeah.
That is the target. Black women, Black men, any minority is going to be kicked in the throat. So there's your answer for every question that you're giving us.
All right.
And I'm not being flippant when I say let them fire you. I literally mean that shit. Let them fire you because that's how you collect unemployment. Because here's the thing. All these people, those 60,000 people that resigned, if the courts end up upholding that and their resignations become valid and the Office of Management and Budget says, yeah, we don't have the money to pay, those people will not qualify for unemployment because they resigned.
They resigned. Yeah.
So if you are a person in one of those positions, one of those DEI positions that could be eliminated, do not quit. Let them fire you, but also ask them to put it in writing in a letter, because you also need a reason. They need to give a reason. And if it's not related to your performance, if they say the position was eliminated, they have to explain why and tell them you need to know the why in writing. And the reason I say this is because when you go to sue them, and you should,
And you should.
when you go to sue them, you can say, hey, also ask for your last 4 performance reviews. You need to show, hey, these are my performance reviews. This is why they say they fired me. Here's the budget for this office for when I leave. But my position was eliminated. And they're saying it's because what? You have to let them say that DEI positions in the government are illegal. And that is not true, which means you have to be able to prove that you were fired unjustly. It seems like this is easy, but for you, it's going to be the documentation. Document everything. If you are in one of these positions, like I said, let them fire you and get it in writing. And even when they send you a letter, if it's not specific enough, you can send it back and say, no, I need more. I need more.
Okay. So this leads to another conversation, but then how can Blacks, Americans, leverage economic power to push for equity?
Keep your money, spend within the community.
The average Black dollar doesn't even stay in our community a good 2 hot seconds. I'm not kidding. Whereas Jewish communities and other communities keep their dollars in their communities to circulate for many, many days. I think on average ours stays 24 to 48 hours before we go and spend it somewhere else. The way that we have to harness our spending power is 1.7 billion.
I think it's 2 now.
Trillion. It's trillion.
That's right. It's gone up to 2.
Yeah. I thought our spending power was 1.3 trillion.
No, billion. But now we're talking, okay, billion, trillion, right now we're at this, at that point I stopped counting.
It don't matter. We need to keep it.
Because we don't leave it in our communities. We need to support our communities. We need to support our stores. We need to support our Black businesses. We need to support the Black family. We need to support the farmers. We need to support those who sew. We need to support the ones who teach our babies. We need to support the nurseries. We need to support the teachers. We need to support. If you don't protect our community will die. We have to go back to what we used to do. If it means that you're bartering with Sarah because Sarah got chickens and you got greens, then that's what you do. But you do not take your spending power and your power of money to another community that doesn't give a shit about you. You don't do it. If you do it, you're going to make us die. Period.
Here's what it said. In 2020, Black consumers had an estimated 1.4 trillion in spending power, which was 9%. 9% of total U.S. buying power. In 2023, it was 1.6 trillion.
All right,
and
so
the estimate is 1.
Okay,
Yeah.
but Regina says in 2020, 1.6 trillion spending power, which was 9. But I'm just taking a look online here. There's a report, State of Black Consumers, McKinsey and Company, February 2024. It's 1.7, and I've heard now it's actually up to just to make sure I get Lala correct, trillion, not billion.
Yeah, it's trillion. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this now. This report from CNBC. It's estimated, projected to grow to 1.8 trillion this year. This is a report from May of last year.
Let's just say it's a lot. Okay.
Yeah. Put it this way. We're getting close to being a true.
Because that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money that we're not keeping in our communities.
Yep. And here's the one thing that I do want people to know, is that this and we talked about this, and we are definitely working on it, but we have to figure out how to connect and facilitate all of the things that Black people need in a space where people can easily get to it. Because I think part of it is the convenience. Who wants to do all that research, but also people want to be able to connect. It's like you said, Lala, it's about bartering and things like that. I'm sorry, but Black bakeries should be buying products from Black farmers. It should be that simple.
Yeah.
This is how we keep the money. This is how we keep the money in our things. Black restaurants should be buying their bread products from Black bakeries who are buying their wheat and flour from Black farmers. This is how we do it.
They're trying to put out of business anyway. They're really trying to put these farmers, Black farmers, out of business.
And guess who's suffering in the midst of it, and they don't realize it. These are the MAGA farmers. Yeah, the MAGA farmers got their behinds. They got their behinds kicked this week. They got their behinds kicked this week. And especially and let me just be very clear, Department of Education, them closing that office, and granted that USDA does provide the school lunch and the foods and stuff because it has to do with the farmers, make no mistake, if they close the Department of Education, the thing that they're going to say is, guess what, USDA? We don't need to work with you all anymore on dealing with this issue. So you're elite. And then farmers in this country are going to be like, wait, part of the money that we relied on was supplying these products for schools through this government contract. They're getting screwed.
So let's
and just one last thing on this. We do have a DEI president. And the reason I say that is because, one, he's a criminal. He was given a second chance. And two, he's old. He's old. Ageism fits in that DEI thing. And if you sit down, you really think about it, who is not DEI? Everybody's got something wrong with them. And granted, being of a different race or different gender doesn't mean having something wrong with them. But when there are people who have asthma. There are people who have seizures. That's considered a disability.
All right, let me jump to this. How can Black communities redefine and reclaim DEI in ways that don't rely on institutions that are actively dismantling it?
I say we let it go. I say we let that phrase go, because we've always looked at equity. We've always talked about equity. We didn't need diversity to be part of that. Equity for us was always all inclusive.
I still stand on what I just said.
Could you repeat?
Sit back and cry about it, or you can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I am right now. We can sit up here and champion our community as much as we want to, but unless people really want to put into action, put their money where their mouth is, then there's a anything else that we can do. We could scream it from the rooftop every day, but you always gonna have that one, Shaquanda, who says she's gonna make sure she go to the Korean store to get the fake hair. I'm sorry. You got to keep the money in our communities.
And let's be very clear. It's not something I want to say this because there are people that I'm sure want to figure out how to do this, and no one's going to be perfect doing it all together. And there are going to be some things. There are going to be some things that you're not going to find. But when you have the choice, when you have the option, when you can say, "Hey, it cost me just as much to buy this from so and so in my community, then it's going to cost me to load up the car, put gas in the car, get over here to get this for a lower price, and come back home." When I could just pay the $1 extra and went down the street in my community and bought it from this person. So I get that, and I get that we're all on fixed incomes and all of that, but where you can, when you can. And then the other thing I want to say to our community is we have to diversify in terms of our offerings to one another. We can't all just sell hair care products and skincare products and candles and lotions and things like that, although those things are well and good. We also need people that we can buy eggs from. We need people we can buy diapers and formula from. We need people that, hell, if I need to buy a notebook, I can buy it from somebody in my community. We need people who, weed is being legalized in many states. We need people who can afford to get these dispensaries. And a lot of places you can't, you got people who are sitting in jail right now for selling drugs, but when they get out, can't own a dispensary because also for a felony, but because they can't afford like the $1 million insurance that some states require. You have people who, car dealerships, have car dealerships in our communities. We've got to do those kinds of things. Gas stations. We don't have gas stations anymore. So even the things that people need, the things that people aren't thinking about are also how we have to diversify. We've got a lot of restaurants. We've got a lot of, I guess, stores that sell what some people consider ethnic products, but oftentimes are things like incense and oils and soaps and things like that. Great. But we also need bookstores. We also need places where people can go buy a good cup of coffee. We need places where people can go, buy back to school supplies for their kids. We need those things too. We need our own sports shops. People are spending their money, their kids are involved in football and basketball, but they're spending all their money at Dick's.
Yep. Regina says, Operation Bread Basket Part 2. I'm going to give 2 more quick conversation points for you ladies, and we're going to let you go. First up, what lessons can we learn from past movements? Black Power
Take it
movements
offline.
And resisting these rollbacks.
Take it offline.
I wholeheartedly agree with Aisha. You got to keep your mouth shut. If you don't, take a cue from the idiot in the White House. He tells us every damn thing. But, ain't no secret what he's doing. But you need to take it back to keeping it within our own communities on what we're doing. You can't tell everybody everything. Baby, they don't have your best interest at heart. And even in your own community, you better pick and choose to make sure that one of them ain't the one ain't usually be telling something. So
we got to get back to moving incognito.
Tighten your circles and tighten our community by keeping your mouth shut.
Yep. I said get back to moving incognito.
Yep.
And last comment, what gives you hope in this moment of attack on DEI and racial justice?
That I know who I am. I know who I am, and I know what I can do for my community. And if that means that I can uplift someone on teaching them how to do something that I know how to do, because I am a multi-talented person, period. Okay. And so are you. Every one of you who are watching, every one of you who are listening right now, so are you. You may not think you are, but hey, you know how to make them homemade biscuits. Guess what? You can do a little class to teach them homemade biscuits. All right. Whatever you know how to do, there's someone else that needs to learn that skill. So I am confident in the things that I know and that I can teach to my community to help uplift my community. The question is,
Yeah.
do you want the knowledge?
Yeah. For me, it's not just, I know people who are going through things, but I also know this. I know what keeps me going and keeps me inspired, that is that I know who we are as Black women. I know that we are right now in our feelings, as we should be, and we're taking a step back. But I also know that we're not going to sit around for 4 years and let your mess spill over into our houses. That's when we are going to, that's people are like, oh, why aren't you guys out there? Guess what? Don't worry. We're gonna fix the country, because guess what? It is the worst living situation for anyone. It's like living in a apartment with roommates that you can't stand and keep making a mess, and you don't want to live in the mess. So we are gonna have to clean up. We are gonna do some cleaning up, but we're also gonna be very selective about what we're cleaning up. And the first thing that we're doing is cleaning up our own community. We'll get around to the parts that we have to actually go into, but don't rely on us to do it. Don't expect us to do it.
Yeah,
And
don't, because right now
you know,
there are so many other communities that they got
yeah,
doggone nerve to
yeah,
turn around and say, "Where are the Black people now that you need them?" We told
right.
you, and we
And what's
also told you you do it, because we're not
right.
doing it anymore.
And what's inspiring to me is that as Black people, we know we'll get on our protest shit when we're ready to get to it. But right now, what
We're
inspires me
resting.
is the fact that we're kind of like, we're not as up in arms as the rest of y'all, because we told you
We
this was going to happen. We knew it was going to happen. The leopard ate your face, and we're not surprised. Also, back to my first question from last week. Is the truth a truth when it's spoken by a liar?
which also leads into something else. Y'all, we done talked about DEI all tonight. I want to share something with you. Musk has a huge DEI contract to send the first woman or person of color to the moon. The very person who wants to get rid of DEI has this massive government contract to send a person of color or woman to the moon. Let that sink in. What they give a shit about is their own pockets, not yours. And everything that they do, they're doing to help bust them to the first trillionaire and whatever else they're doing. Musk, everything that he's doing is illegal. This isn't even a real government job. But if you've noticed, he's going after the departments who he has beef with. The
ones
only
who are
reason
investigating
Trump is
him.
having a problem with South Africa right now is because Musk has a problem with South Africa. Huh? That ain't that. Why are we worrying about what South Africa's doing right now? We worrying about what America's supposed to do. Okay, that's one. Two, he's going after the intelligence that knew that he stopped Starlink communications to the Ukraine. What does he do? He just took them down this week. So, and here's another one there before we go. Now, listen, I'm telling you, we're getting 50,000 bombs thrown at us before we can even attack one. Trump says he will dismiss Kennedy Center board members and install himself as chair.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He already said he's the chair of the Kennedy Center. And here's what I don't understand. You already got a job. How you can barely do the one job you have. How are you gonna do this job too? And he announced that he's in charge of planning all the events and everything. I'm sorry. Just because you are in charge of who gets these awards, for the arts doesn't mean that Hollywood and these famous people are still are going to like you and start kissing your butt again. Guess what? It's nice for people to get, but guess what? If they don't get it, it's like, I'm sorry. Beyonce had the option: Kennedy Center Award from Trump versus Grammy for country album. I'm gonna take the Grammy for a country album because they told me I couldn't do a country album, but I'll get a Kennedy Center honor. Not from you, but I'll get one eventually. I mean, come on.
All right, we're done. Ladies, thank you for probably getting rid of all the energy you were storing up all week, and hopefully we'll have a peaceful rest of the evening. As always,
I'm gonna go back. Look, I'm gonna go back to not paying attention to this stuff.
Okay, yeah. There you go. So, as always, we want to thank the ladies for taking their time hanging out with us and giving some political and economic and social American tea for us. As always, we want them to share their contact information. So first up, LaLa, where can you be found?
I made it easy. You're just going to find me at my name, www.laurakey.net. I am in the process of moving everything over to my website. So I have a lot of free situations on my page. Please feel free to do so. I still have bit.ly/LauraKeyInfo. As I'm moving things over, I will be phasing things out on that page. Now, listen, I also have an absolutely fabulous store that I'm pretty proud of. I have a couple of things in that store that will help you fight the power and uplift you as our community. Know who you are, know your worth. Know your worth. Just because they want to erase you does not mean that you don't exist. So stand firm, stand strong, support your communities. And you can find me at www.laurakey.net.
All right, Aisha K. Staggers time.
You can find me at AK Staggers on Instagram. You can email me at akstaggers@gmail.com if you want a copy of my children's book, The Infallible Fanny Freeman, signed copy. Or you can buy it at dn.com. You can find me at Medium at Aisha K. Staggers on Medium. And Blue Sky, it's akstaggers.bsky.social.
Thank you very much. And myself, you can find me in a number of different places. You can find me at my website, thedrvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, Instagram, The Dr. Vibe Show, X/Twitter, at drvibeshow, email dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And you can also find me at Blue Sky at drvibe.bsky.social. All right, you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and then the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com. So this is how we ended off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller, get stronger, block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider, love, faith, and respect. Always don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. Also, I'd like to say, make it bigger. Make it bigger. And that's how we'll end off. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good. We'll see you soon.